Good afternoon, Spencer. Good evening nearly for you, right?
Oh, no, good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock here, so it's fine. Good
Oh,
afternoon. Yeah,
it's still okay.
yeah,
You're based in Australia, Sydney, one of the major hubs in the Southern Hemisphere from a business perspective.
yeah.
You operate 3 hotels at the moment in Sydney.
Mhm.
Um, Let me ask you this. If we would have met in the back half of last year or even very early on this year, you had the bushfires, right? And then all of a sudden you kind of go into COVID, right?
Mhm.
At what point, like first question would have been, what did you think 2020 is going to be like, right? And the second question, at what point did you realize, okay, that's not just a common flu, this is actually going to really hammer us?
Good question. 2019 was not a great year for our industry in Australia. Um, we've had a wonderful, thriving economy for many years. However, 2019 would not be classified as one of them. Very slow growth in the hotel industry. For that matter, entire hospitality industry, we had a few things that really impacted us. One you've named yourself, which is the bushfires. So I use it's funny, but you jump from the frying pan into the fire, and we were literally in the frying pan, or the fire, you might call it, bushfires. And then to make matters, I mean, bushfires seem like a walk in the park compared to what we are facing at the moment. Sydney was not affected by bushfires, but travel was, and we get a lot of travel from rural New South Wales where it was all affected. So that definitely had its impact. But let me go back a little bit and tell you a bit more about 2019. We also had the Banking Royal Commission that had a great impact on the banking sector, who then stopped lending as freely as they would. They tightened up their credit ratings and credit levels, and as a result, that resulted in businesses tightening up because they were not getting funds. When businesses tighten up, the business travel reduces. Business travel reduces, hotels are affected. So that was, in my opinion, a big, far bigger than what people see in the media. But for me, as an industry professional, I think had a far bigger impact in our business as compared to maybe the bushfires. I'm not even saying that the bushfires were a terrible thing, and we lost lives and all that, and people's homes, and it was the worst thing that you can think of. But it was just terrible. However, coming out of we also had issues with events in Sydney. A lot of the events did not take place in Sydney because Sydney
Was that
priced itself at
somebody else stole it from Sydney, like Melbourne
yeah,
or somebody else? Because I know you built this huge convention center,
that's right.
and then you kind of go there and you say, like, what kind of magnitude of events do you actually need to run
Yes,
in order to fill it consistently?
sure. Yep, you're absolutely right. We built this beautiful convention center. In fact, the entire Darling Harbour precinct was completely redeveloped. We have a hotel in Darling Harbour, and it actually did worse than the previous year,
Oh, wow.
despite that. So you would expect that things would pick up immensely. It's really a world stage but the marketing, I think, was affected, and Sydney priced itself out of the market, and as a result, places like Melbourne and Brisbane took advantage. So yes, I hope that's a good lesson for them, and they will bring all those events back because we really need it now. I think events are a great thing to tell the world that we are open.
Absolutely.
We have now survived. We are, it's a good message to send. We usually in the winter months, just about another couple of months, we have, I don't know if you're familiar with Vivid, which
Yeah,
is a light
Vivid.
show.
Always beautiful.
Yes. So I'm hoping that this year they do Vivid rather than not do Vivid.
But isn't it
Because
May
of
or
pandemic.
June normally?
It is not in May. I think it's in June, I think. But
Okay.
there's no signs of it. So I think that's a lost opportunity. It was a good way to tell the world, even if we are doing it for local people, they need to open the borders. you know, our next door neighbor, Queensland, is not opening their borders. And they have 0 cases, and we have very few ourselves, 1 or 2. So I think the country and its people need to think carefully about the next steps, because nobody has the privilege of time. Time runs out for everybody. In my business, I tell people, we are not selling hotel beds, we are not selling hotel rooms, we are selling time, and we have the most perishable product of any product there is. Once the night is over, you cannot put it back on the shelf and sell it again. It's gone forever. And time never waits for anybody. So I hope the time is used properly, and the government and the people think carefully about the next steps, because our survival, our future, and our success all depends on it. I think that's true for the entire world.
I think you and you, as in Australia and New Zealand, are very much on the forefront of opening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have what they call the travel bubbles, right?
Yes.
Because of close proximities, but I see those travel bubbles becoming bigger and bigger, but
Mm-hmm.
they equally become very selective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we now look at the recovery, and you have opened, I believe, last weekend or the weekend before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not internationally, but you allowed some kind of cross-state travel, or you were allowed to travel within 150 kilometers. Did you see any pick up from there? Because people talk about revenge travel, and I understand Australia has a large domestic market, which
Yes.
is great.
Mm-hmm.
But you put on the other hand that spending is a bit squeezed in households right now.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It is.
So what's your thought on that from a recovery perspective? Because I think a lot of people hope, now the circuit breaker or the lockdown is over, so now we're going to go back full steam.
Yeah. I'm an optimistic person by nature. So I'm hopeful, but like everyone else, nobody has seen this before. Nobody can go back and say, I can refer to these notes and say, this is what I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50, 100 years ago. Nobody has those notes. So how does a bubble affect us is an amazing question. And I commend you for asking that. How can I best answer that is with my optimistic nature. I hope that people will start supporting Australian businesses and traveling within Australia, because the advantage is also that people should not leave Australia to go to other destinations. So if they're traveling within Australia, I think we'll be okay. Only time will tell. I can't make a prediction one way or the other whether it's better. I know for a fact from our tourism data, more people go out of Australia than people come in.
Okay.
So if that is retained within Australia, I think it'll have a good effect. So fingers crossed. So the bubble is good.
How did you take your organization through that entire period and going forward? Because you're the last man standing, right? Founder, CEO on top. Mm-hmm. So if anything breaks down, people will look and say, Spencer, you got to make the call here, right? And mm-hmm. I know that we always try to look composed or I don't want to say tough guy out there, but emotionally that must have been havoc, no? Because it was like crash landing.
I think if you're an emotional person, then it would be hard. None of these decisions are easy. To lose your bread and butter totally almost is not easy for anybody.
Yeah.
But when you see everyone else in the same boat, when you see that certain people are even worse than you, for example, restaurants, they couldn't even open. Yeah. Bars are still not open. Clubs partially open, they can allow 10. You've got a capacity of 400 or 500 and you can only allow 10 people. So from that point of view, it makes you feel better. Not because they're having a worse time, but makes you feel that you could also be in those shoes. Yeah. And you obviously feel bad for them. I feel terribly for these businesses, and I feel one rule does not apply to every business. But on my part, I'm not a very emotional person. I'm more or less very, very pragmatic, and I analyze things, and I try to make as many decisions as I can on an unemotional, logical manner. I didn't get affected emotionally a lot. I also personally, practice yoga and stuff like that, so that helped a lot. So I don't think emotionally I got that driven. Yes, it is never a good feeling to see incomes drop that much. It's never a good feeling to let employees go. It's never a good feeling to close down one hotel. But if I was down, then what do I expect of my team? So I've always got to be up. I've always got to, um, you know, shine the torch, saying that things are going to get better. And I do believe that they will. Um, and I must also give great commendment to the Australian government. They helped us a lot. They've done a wonderful job. I just was in a webinar just a moment ago where um, a company was talking about their business in UK and New Zealand, where they have had little or no uh, government intervention or government support, grants, all those kind of things. Australian government has done very well in that regard. So I'm obviously very thankful to that. I think now that they've done a good job with that, focus on the economy, try to engage businesses and get this whole thing started again.
How do you think that first phase of recovery will come, and what will the traveler of the next 6 months to 12 months look forward to, right? Are they all going to come with UAV light, literally checking every little thing? Because you have people talking about hygiene being a really the luxury, so to speak. And I'm kind of, I think people have shorter memories than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
And that we equally need to think this is a government thing, right? It's not, individual hotels have cleaning standards in place. But do we see something, or can you imagine something like a food hygiene standards, but for hotel? Mm-hmm. Or do you think the travelers will just come back and will forget? Are you changing the way you sell?
Yeah. If you look on our website, we have things particularly related to COVID-19. Okay. It's on our website. The self-isolation, all those kind of things, those type of accommodation deals are present. In terms of operations and cleaning, of course, things will change. We were one of the first hotels that put out sanitizers on the counters. We give sanitizers to our guests. So there's no doubt in my mind that things have already changed. Whether people will come, we've not had any so far. Hotels operating, we've not had anyone say anything about specific requirement or something special. So I'm optimistic in that way that people will not go that crazy, that they make demands of things that are unreasonable. It is our responsibility as a hotel business to ensure cleaning levels always at a good level, and they maintain that way. And to be honest, we've improved it a lot more since this problem. But I don't see there will be too much change in that respect.
Do you think there will be changes, especially you that you're owning and operating? Will you redesign some of your hotels or drop some services or making something a multi-purpose space? Is that something that crosses your mind to say, you know what, at least I'm prepared next time as well as I could be?
Yeah, I've given that a bit of thought. So for example, sneeze screens. We are going to be putting up sneeze screens at the reception counters. But that's not a big thing, you see. At least it gives the people when they're coming and our staff a bit of a barrier And frankly, it is more perception than anything else.
Yeah.
But perception is important in this business, very important. In terms of other things, it'll be more related to entertainment. I feel hotel entertainment will become more important because people will perhaps spend more time, but I don't see much of that happening, to be honest. Life is getting back to normal rapidly. It is now important that the governments recognize that and encourage that, rather than put obstacles every single place. Similar to what's happening in certain states in the US. I hope we don't ever go down that path. I don't think we will. But I think life needs to go back to normal. We need to put the pandemic behind us. We have learned lessons from it. Hygiene has become extremely important, no doubt about that. I'm personally myself washing my hands. I'm not very comfortable with sanitizers because of the chemical effect, but I'm washing my hands a lot more. At least 4 or 5 times more than what I used to before. So from that perspective, I think everyone is doing that. And so from a design perspective, I don't see much of a change in that area.
What about from a selling, revenue management, marketing perspective, or even operations perspective, or even staffing perspective, right?
Yeah.
Do you see any changes that we fundamentally have to change the way we put ourselves out there?
Yeah. So if travel continues the way it is, the one lesson that people and businesses have learned now, which is probably not the best scenario for hotels, is businesses have learned to work remotely. They've learned to work from homes. That's never a good thing for a hotel because they won't use the hotel then. But that's reality. On my part, I've had remote staff in this company since 2006. And we have constantly invested heavily, and we have some of our best team members overseas. And they participate in day-to-day management in senior positions, just like anyone else would. And they are highly respected. We will continue to look at that. I don't think any new positions will come in. I don't think they would replace any Australian staff members. End of the day, it's a people business. I cannot replace the Australian staff. They have to do their job. Some management staff, we could have them in Australia, but we can also have them in other countries. We have a lot of staff in the Philippines. Great quality staff. I can't talk any highly of them. And I feel that aspect perhaps will increase rather, in hotels. As far as guests are concerned, there might be a need for teleconferencing in hotel rooms. We should look at that. Definitely look at that. We are at the moment, we've signed a contract just, believe it or not, 3 days ago to get 1000 Mbps internet speed in this hotel.
Nice.
So that will definitely enhance entertainment, that will enhance teleconferencing, all these kind of things. So
the technology will be a big part then going forward.
Absolutely, yes, I think so.
But it won't, do you think part of it will replace the human? Or it will just be complementary to it? So will it be a man versus machine, or a man actually put on steroids by machine?
No, I don't think it'll be man versus machine because we don't really have the machines yet. If housekeeping, for example, could be done by machines, it'd be perfect. But then I would have to hire people who would fix the robots, So it's another thing. You open one opportunity and another something else comes up, So while I save money on housekeeping, I might have to spend money more on maintenance, So the point I'm trying to make is I don't think we have the machines, but technology-wise, revenue management, all that stuff, I still believe it's not there yet. AI is definitely not at the level, especially in hotels, at what I think it should be.
Yeah.
Intuitive software. It's all in the future, but it's not anything because of COVID-19.
Okay. Now, let's look at the staffing, right? I always felt that when I talk to my friends and then other industries, hospitality was always something smiled upon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear a lot that you don't require any skills for hospitality, and I fundamentally disagree with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how could you now tell a graduate and tell them hospitality is the best place to work in, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we shift that mindset to actually make hospitality the industry to work in?
Yeah. Yep. I also believe, addition to what you said, Fabian, and I totally agree with you. I am, as you've probably seen, I've been educated in this industry. I've worked, trained, all that stuff. I've been through the ranks and reached where I've reached. It just didn't happen to me that I one day became an owner of a hotel company. So coming through the ranks, I lay a great deal of importance on training, because I learned, and what I learned today, what I know today, is because somebody in the past did a good job in training me, and I did a great job in learning too. So it's you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. So from that perspective, while you have people who I can encourage, they need to have hospitality within them. So either you have hospitality or you don't have hospitality. And if you have hospitality, then I would encourage them to pursue that. But if you have mind is somewhere else, then it's a hard industry. You'll get burned out quite easily.
Oh, it is, right?
Yeah.
I know that 70% of the people that start, well, 80, 85, maybe even 90% of people who started with me didn't make the first 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we got to work, and they went, no, I didn't sign up for that.
That's right.
If we meet in 3 years' time,
Mm-hmm.
are we going to say COVID was the best thing that could ever happen to us? Or are we going to say that's where it went downhill?
I don't think we'll ever say COVID was the best thing that happened to us. I don't think anyone would say that. Even the industries that were doing extremely well, for example, the supermarkets, they had better sales than during Christmas and all that, in Australia at least. Now they're facing a major downturn because people have bought so much stuff that they don't know what to do with it. But I don't think anyone will say that COVID was the best thing. I think we will all learn from COVID. I think we will definitely improve. I know for sure that my company, we are using this quiet time to make many changes. Many changes. We built our entire website in the COVID period.
So are you saying because hospitality was always the industry that was deemed to be so far behind in technology? So are you just playing catch up, or are you actually bringing in new innovation?
No, I don't think so. We've been quite. I'm very technology savvy, and I easily. I always want to use technology to my advantage. I feel that there's not much technology for hospitality to help it reach the level it needs to reach. We try a lot of things, Fabian, only to learn that there's always it is not as good as what it sounded when you took it on. So I agree with you totally that hospitality is behind, but I feel that there's a long way for technology to influence us to a point where what you said previously is technology replacing people, but we are nowhere near that at this point.
So you're cautiously optimistic about the next 5 years, or are you in the camp that says in 5 years' time we're still not going to be where we are today?
No, I think we will. I definitely think we will. I think we'll be better than what we are today. So forget about today. Today is the worst, but I would say, as I said to you before, 2019 was not a great year, but 2018 levels, we should cross that within 2 years.
And last question really around the corporate travel, and you alluded to it a bit earlier, and international travel, right?
Yep.
Because international travel will only come in if one government trusts another, right? So fair enough, New Zealand is generally out of the question because they will be the first to come in. Do you think that can make or break who comes to the country, number one? And number two, would you look at a different country more or less from a perspective, do I want to take that tour group, for example?
So I think I also briefly brushed on this matter where we have a net loss in terms of travel. So in other words, more people leave Australia than come to Australia. So from that perspective, if those people who are leaving Australia are captured within Australia, then I don't think it'll be much of a negative effect in terms of our industry. Travel industry is a different story. Airline travel, different story. For their sake, I wish all these things open up, but I don't see how in the next 3, 4, 6 months, maybe next year, international travel will start resuming. But when will it reach pre-COVID levels? I don't know.
Well, it's also a question about what if we apply social distancing inside aeroplanes, right? All of a sudden, the prices will just skyrocket.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't think that's even practical because it'll have the same effect as no travel, because people will travel less and therefore the airlines will be affected. So I think that's, I'm not an airline industry expert, so I won't talk much about that, but I can tell you that from a hotel industry perspective, if people travel within Australia, or for that matter, Australia and New Zealand, then I don't see that to be much of a detriment from my hotel and my industry perspective.
Did you put all of your growth plans on hold, or are you still pursuing them?
No, at this point, they are on hold. Like I said, we were going to open a hotel. We would have been in that hotel now. So at this point, we are not even thinking about when will that happen. We are expecting it to happen in the new year, but once again, next month probably will tell us better. Growth plans are definitely on hold.
And on a positive note, what is the thing you look most forward to then in the next 12 months?
Sorry, Fabian, I didn't get that.
What are you looking forward to in regards to travel over the next 12 months?
Yeah, take a holiday first. I have not taken a holiday for a long time now, so I desperately need that.
And I assume it's going to be in Australia, yeah?
Yes, that's right. So no, I don't have an issue with that. We always traveling in Christmas time. We didn't do it this year, obviously. But cut a long story short, 12 months, I feel we'll be in a much better position than today.